All right, welcome to DeepSEO Conference webinar series again, everybody. Today we are speaking with Dave Davies, content strategist, all-around brilliant guy, currently working with Weights and Biases. And today we are going to have a conversation about content strategy and how it can help you with Google and your website and customers and all that fun stuff. I'm Steve Grenzer, and my partner up there is Doc Sheldon. Let's go ahead and just jump right into it. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Outstanding. So I've been a fan of yours for quite a while. I watch a lot of your stuff, pay attention from the bottom of the barrel, kind of so to speak, because I am not a content guy. That's not what I do. I can, but I haven't. My own blog for my own business has been updated once in the last 3 years. It's just not an area I'm comfortable in. So maybe we could start with some basics and why this is important and what people should be thinking about when they're thinking content.
Sure. I guess the simplest sort of 30,000 foot view of content is that's what Google's trying to put in front of people. Like that is the only thing that matters at the end of the day. Like it's the only thing that you can, we can make different arguments about different levels and stuff, but I don't think they're lying when they say you can rank without links, right? Like without like big pushes and stuff. So that part is not as necessary, but you're not going to rank without content. Like it just is the only thing. Now, I think a lot of people, myself included, when I think content, you go, what's your content strategy? I naturally defer to written. I go, oh, okay, I wrote an article on XYZ. And for the most part, that's a lot of the content we as SEOs produce is written content. It's predictable, counting code and schema and stuff like that, I suppose. But that's what we naturally think about. But I think for a lot of viewers and listeners, I think it is important to also consider going outside of that and going, this right now, we're producing content. It isn't written, but we're producing content. And that content has a space in the search results. So even when we're thinking SEO, not only is there like video and audio setups and results, but on just home pages, we see video results. On home pages, we see all sorts of different questions being answered in different formats and stuff like that. So I think the concept of content can sometimes get a little messy, and I'm the first one to make this mistake. So and go, oh, okay, I'm going to do my keyword research. Do I do that on YouTube? Nope. Right? Like, could I? Yeah, but I don't defer to that as my starting point. So I think that's sort of how top level, what we need to be thinking about when we're thinking of content is the broad brush stroke that is content.
Yeah, and I agree, Dave. I think an awful lot of us are often guilty of defaulting to written content as what it's supposed to be. But I mean, even though it's not on your own website, things like TikTok, little reels on Facebook, YouTube videos, that's all content. And basically anything that could be consumed by users qualifies as content. And if you can make it deliver your message, get the right message to the right people in the right way at the right place, then you've accomplished precisely what you wanted to with your content.
Indeed. And I mean, I write some ads for Google. That's content, right? Like all of this is content. So like if we're thinking about top level content strategy, I mean, that's not my like primary focus, obviously. Like my dominance is in, like my dominant skill set is in SEO, but I dabble a little bit over there. So it's just, again, another type of content that has a different format. Paid search on that side, I think is from an SEO standpoint, can be highly valuable to go, oh, okay, let's refine. Let's see which keywords actually convert before we go and invest thousands or maybe tens of thousands of dollars trying to chase this down organically. Let's do a little testing over on the paid search side, see which titles and descriptions are working well for that content type, where you can just go, I'm just going to give you a few $100 and you're going to tell me the answer. Like, that's just how that's going to work.
And that's always been my favorite approach to SEO and content in general. It's always been paid traffic because it's immediate, and right away, yeah, that key phrase got you 10,000 clicks, but you only sold one of whatever it was you were trying to sell, maybe that's not a path you need to be going down. I've worked with a company before that they rank fabulous. They drive staggering amounts of traffic to their website, but it's people who have already bought what they sell, not people looking to buy it.
Right.
and it's been a 2-year struggle to get them to refocus and point in a different direction.
Right. And I mean, I think a lot of companies focus on a type. And I mean, that's talking about, again, overarching content strategies going, that is important content, right? And I'm sure you're not saying get rid of that because that's your loyalty. That's your community. That's why they'll be back, because you are that person. But you need to be filling the like, you don't just want to sit with what you have. You want to grow. We all do. So yeah, what content does it take to push it forward, and then what content does it take to keep people happy and engaged with you and coming back over and over and over again, using you as a resource. And of course, there's also the content type, and it's, my favorite is the resource type that can also be our link bait, right? Like just that stuff that just naturally gets links. Like it's just like it's a versus piece of content. Let's look at that. Like I'm in the machine learning space. So how much faster at a specific task is the 3090 over the 1080 Ti video cards, right? Like that sort of thing where people will go, oh, is it worth investing $3,000 in this thing because the Bitcoin market's driven up the price? Maybe it is, right? And we'll provide that data, those sorts of examples. But is that going to make people go, oh, okay, we need to, all of a sudden start using your service? Not in our case. Like it's the right people, but it's not actually the content that would drive them to do that, because it's not task oriented to what they'd be looking for. But a lot of people link to things like versus content, like because it's quick and easy and good. So, can you do that to help you rank on the other stuff, right? So there's all sorts of different little like fun. I mean, that's why we're having a chat about content, because we all sort of get excited about different areas of it.
Well, and don't you love it when you're talking to a new client and you ask them, okay, who is your ideal user? And they say, everybody. Okay, yeah, well, no, I'm sorry, that's not how this works. Yeah. So finding the audience and determining who is your audience is critical. To me, that's always the first step.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is, and that's another case. I mean, you can do a bunch of tests in content, but might be another case, as we were talking about earlier, for paid search, because Google gives you a lot more demographic data when you give them money for it, right? Like when you're going, I'm buying clicks, they'll go, here's the clicks you bought. They not as transparently as they used to, but they do still. So yeah, go ahead and drop, depending on your budget, right? So I'll just like throw around $10,000 for like, many companies to just go, okay, just drop that in there and pull out, run a few different campaign types and content types, run some remarketing campaigns to find out who's already on your site and pull that demographic data. You can probably get pretty decent data out of your analytics, but also like, where are those ads showing up later? What else are they doing when they're out in the world? And then draw your content strategy from that and go, okay, these are the things that my users are actually doing. This is how they're actually engaging with the site, and here's how they're engaging with the outside world as well. Maybe engage in a LinkedIn campaign to figure out things like, what companies are they from, right? Things like that just like it can inspire you to get a little bit more understanding of who your people are, because you bring up a spot on point, which is, if you don't understand them, how are you going to write for them, or produce video content, or produce audio? Like, how are you going to produce content for them? And then the different types of content you want to produce. When I'm on TikTok, and I love TikTok, but when I'm on there, I'm on a very different mission. Or if I'm on Facebook, I'm on a very different mission than when I'm over on Reddit or when I'm over on Twitter. When I'm over on Twitter, I'm probably just there to fight with somebody, right? Like I'm just there to like just rant at somebody, or maybe find out what Barry Schwartz is doing, right? Like those are the two tasks I'm probably trying to do when I'm on Twitter. Maybe John Mueller, but each time I'm in a different spot doing a different thing. And so I think thinking a lot about what content you're putting in front of people. If I'm on TikTok, I'm really easy to distract, but it better be entertaining, because I'm there to be entertained. That's my only task when I'm on TikTok, is make me laugh, but I have free time. because I'm here doing nothing, right? I'm here just swiping, and I've got like a 3-second attention span because my habit is to go not laughing, swipe, not laughing, swipe. Like that's the mode I'm in. Whereas if I'm over on LinkedIn, I've clearly got a bit extra time, unless I'm there to do like specific research, but I've clearly got a bit extra time, but I'm in work mode. So you could probably pitch me on things a little more related to SaaS products or something like in my field. It'll be different for everybody, but you could probably hit me up with stuff related to work tasks, but you're still going to have to speak to me very different than if I'm in Google search, where I'm looking for a solution. I've got a specific thing I want, and I'm there to do a specific thing. So when you rank that content, just fulfill my need. That's it. Just like Dave's looking up hyperparameter tuning. I mean, I wouldn't look that up because I'm not a machine learning engineer, but they would. Okay, now I need to just land them at a page that answers that query in its variety of different meanings.
Well, that's a great point, Dave, because it demonstrates how even the same user needs to be approached in a different fashion depending upon where you're finding them. Are they on their mobile? Are they at home asking about pizza? Are they on the street asking about pizza? Okay. Are they looking for clothes while they're out at a mall, or are they looking for clothes while they're at home at Amazon or whatever? So, the approach has to change, even with the same user.
Very, very much. And I mean, to me, I guess it depends how you sort of approach it and how your brain works. To me, this is the part that I really, really enjoy. Now, I mean, but both of you, I think, know my wife, and she does sort of UX stuff. So I have a really good and easy phone a friend on that one, because I'm not creative in that sort of way, but I am data driven. So I sort of like the data, and that's exactly the sort of scenarios that I really, really enjoy, is that ability to go, okay, it's the same person. How do I distract them? Right? Like, which is all we're trying to do. We're just trying, unless we're talking just pure Google search, which is how do I fulfill their need, and how do I fulfill, no, I guess we can get into that strategy, not just their need, but every need from everybody who could possibly be searching for that query, which is a different, these are two different things.
Yeah.
But when we're on, TikTok or the sort of like I'll call them secondary environments, although TikTok's like devastating to Facebook as of the time of this recording, right? Like Facebook lost like big value because of TikTok. But at the end of the day, just understanding that part is really fascinating, and it does require a lot of empathy. And I don't mean empathy like I really care for you. I mean, that's fine too, but that's a different thing with a different place. But the ability to go, okay, if I'm you and I'm on TikTok and I have my demographic data on who you are roughly, what can I possibly put in front of you to distract you? Like, and in a good way, where you feel happy to be distracted and you want to engage with that distraction. Even if on TikTok, it's just like, I saw this company while I was swiping, they made me laugh, right? And that's all. They moved on. You may never have any idea how they contributed to a conversion later, or engagement with your community later that ended up leading to them being a sign up to a newsletter or a webinar event or whatever. Like these chains might be down the road. Whereas on Google, going back to that one, looking at content strategy and going, if I'm trying to rank for, I mean, on a page level, you can look at any given query and go, who am I trying to satisfy? One of my favorite queries, just because the layout of the SERP results, and it's changed over time, but it's always my favorite query, is American Civil War. Like, you just look at the variety of what goes on that page. Like, it's got book recommendations. Funny, I haven't looked it up in like probably a few months, but I can almost guarantee books are in there. Because they just consistently say there'll be some videos with like walkthroughs of it. Like, there's just, it's got all sorts of components. But a page that would rank, you've got to wonder, if I wanted to rank there, how do I do that? Well, we know it should probably have video, because video's on there. And even if it doesn't rank, hopefully your video will. But you're not just looking at people who might casually be looking it up, like me, right? I mean, I'm not even American, but I have looked that up, not just as an example for a search result, but just like, oh, okay, what actually happened? So you've got somebody who's just wanting to get a general gist of something. You might also be having a university student who's writing like a deep dive into some things, who need some resource points. So you've got that going on. You've got like just a whole array. A professor might be looking for great places to send people to, right? Or a reporter who's trying to look for a resource to add to their piece. So you've got this whole array of different people, and Google's going, I need to satisfy them all. Like the best piece hits them all, and also in the format that all of them individually are going to want, right? So how do you do that? And that's a really, really fun challenge for me as well. Or do you write an individual piece for each one, and then how does Google decide which one to rank for the university student versus the high school student versus the professor versus like Dave, who's just trying to like figure out, a too long didn't read version.
And another wrench in the works on a topic like that is there's so many hundreds of millions of words already in existence on that topic. So now it becomes extremely competitive to get somebody's attention, to distract them and make them want to look at your page.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that gets into like just a whole different nightmare, doesn't it? Like, how do you differentiate when you're going after something that is? I mean, it's funny as a search competition. That's probably for exactly the reason you've illustrated. Probably what I'd go. Let's pick about 100 different things before we get there.
Yeah.
Like we can just go bankrupt waiting to fight that battle, right? Like we can just focus really hard and we'll go bankrupt in the process, or let's start with the smaller like battles and stuff, and like work our way up to that ranking if that's what's fiscally responsible for you to go that route. But it is an interesting, and then of course that gets into a different content strategy selection is. Understand where you are, run some tests on what you can rank for, and figure out what you can actually do to pay the bills.
Yeah, what's realistic?
To fight the next one. Yeah. I mean, I've seen so many companies like it was alluded to earlier. They're like, what do you want to rank for? Everything. Who's your customer? Everything. Right? Like, well, that's great. And in 6 months, you could go for like these low-level hanging fruits. Well, that's not great. No, it's not. But it'll keep the lights on while we go for this one.
Yeah, there's a reason. There's a reason we're not all trying to rank for SEO.
Right. Right. Because there's going to be 10 results on the first page, of which 3 or 4 of them are going to get clicks. So 4 companies-ish are actually going to make enough traffic from that to stay in business. Mm-hmm. So you got to figure out something else to do. I mean, I'm not saying that everything below the fold is kind of irrelevant, but most of the stuff below the fold.
Well, choose your battles. Yeah.
So you better have something else going on there than just that one. And of course, then you also get into other content strategies. I know very, very successful firms. We all probably do. And I won't label them because I don't want to go like, and these ones, I haven't seen them rank for stuff. But I know a ton of really successful SEO firms that I don't see in the rankings. It's like, well, that's because they have other content strategies. Heck, I would even consider going to conferences as a content strategy. Like, it's a link strategy and it gets your content in front of other people. So, and then you hopefully get some write-ups from some other journalists or bloggers who were there, and then they're promoting you, right? So, you can have, I don't know, like, this is just, as you can tell, I can have fun like all over the place on this sort of stuff. So
I know in the past we used to do a lot of just pure image search work, especially with jewelry stores and places like that, where it was so difficult for customers to figure out what they wanted. They would go to Google image search and type in engagement ring or skeleton ring or whatever and just start scrolling through pictures. And that was wonderful for as long as it lasted. And then we had sites like Pinterest come along. A lot of Instagram has gone that route. And trying to help clients understand that, yes, it's social media, but it's also still a content strategy, and it's still important because we've kind of lost this channel that you were relying so heavily on. You need to pivot and go to this channel or this to try to get that traffic back or that potential customer back. And it's a challenge just to convince them that these are still the same thing. At the end of the day, it's content, and we need that for your customers.
Well, yeah, 100%. And I think it is a challenge. I think probably every marketer in every genre of marketing has had some form of that same problem. Yeah. And I never blame the client or end user for that. It's that we're equipped with the information. Right. They're not. But explaining to them that what is it you're actually trying to accomplish? You're trying to get in front of people when they're looking for images. Right? Like, you're not actually trying to rank in Google image search because the users aren't there anymore. Right? They're over here now. I mean, there's still a lot of people using Google image search, but I get you, like, you need to diversify now. One of the things, and it's my favorite statement in SEO, diversity is security. And I told everybody who listened, like, that what, right? Like, don't go for the primary phrase, rank for a bunch of phrases. It's better and you'll survive more updates from it. Try and rank in a few places. You list a great example, like be on Pinterest, right? Be strong on Pinterest because people are there. Be strong on Google's image search because people are still there. But be on Instagram, right? Like, it's going to cost a little more because you have to be in more places. But now there's more people in more places. And heck, there's the same person in multiple places who's now going to see you multiple times.
Exactly.
So, and I know, like, it's an older study by I think it was 360i had done it, and I'm sure that the data has changed, but had found that if people, and this, like, we're going back far, like, there used to be a right-hand bar in paid search. Like, we all remember that, like, right hand, it's going back to then, but they found that if you ranked on paid search, it improved your click-through rate on organic by 15%, even if they didn't click it, just by brand recognition. So you can extrapolate. It just makes sense. We're all human beings. I don't know what the figures are, but I know if I saw you on Instagram and then I saw you on Google image search, there's going to be a trigger of a reminder, right? Like, there's going to be okay, I can naturally trust this person a little bit more because every time we see something, we trust it a little bit more. I mean, unless it's just rubbish, in which case we just are reminded how horrible something is. But, because then we can all think of companies like that where we're like, ooh, yeah, every time I see them, it's just bad. But they've just got reputation management problems. So that's that's
where the familiarity with them becomes a little less good.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. And you should just try and avoid that. You've probably got some other problems you need to solve other than your content strategy at that point.
And they never want to hear that.
No, I know. It's like, oh, if you're coming to me with a reputation management problem, there's probably a problem before that. I have seen companies, though, where it's like, oh, it was like this person 5 years ago, and it's still haunting you today, right? And like, they were let go 5 years ago, and now, like, you're still trying to get out from under this. I sympathize, and but yeah, most of them are just like, but you're still the same person. Like, you're still doing the same things. So we could probably solve this one, and I won't feel good about it. But you're probably going to find yourself in the same spot again. So maybe I just have like this rotating wheel of you'll be a client of mine every
nice recurring income.
I won't feel good about it, but somebody's going to take the money.
Yeah. If the dollar amount's high enough, sure, why not? Oh my goodness. So I guess maybe a question for me, because again, like I said, this is not where I excel at. When you're looking, let's just a random new client, what kind of process do you go through just to kind of get a feel for where they are currently versus
what I tend to do? I mean, there's the typical tools that we would all use, right? Like going to SEMrush, Ahrefs, whatever. We all have our tools to go, okay, what are you ranking for now? Like, just like, I never trust a client really to tell me what they're ranking for, because they tend not to know. And again, I don't blame them. That's not their thing. They might have worked with an SEO in the past or have done, pulled ranking data and stuff like that. But if they haven't, they'll have an instinct, just like they'll have an instinct for what they want to rank for, but not understanding anything to do with competition. I know exactly, if I didn't know what house prices were, I would know exactly what house I wanted to live in. But I do know what house prices are, so I'm a little more responsible and reasonable in my expectations of what that house is going to be, right? And that's sort of the same spot. Of course, everybody wants the moon, but some of you hopefully will hit the clouds, and then maybe eventually you'll start a SpaceX, and then maybe eventually you can get up there to the moon or something like that. But the first thing I usually do, and it's a little different with every client depending on what they have, but the first thing I usually do with a sort of stock scenario would be ask the client to send me what they think they want, and I'll always word it as what you think you want. But then independently, I'll review their site, I'll pull some data on their competitors, and then I'll put together my own keyword research. Then I'll access theirs. Like, just sort of go, without your bias being sort of influencing me, what do I see from your site? And then I just send it to the client with just a big list. Like, I'll sort of reduce it down to what I feel and go, rank each one of these on a scale of 1 to 5. Right? Like, just like you rank each one, not caring about what the keyword sort of volume is, but just how likely would it be to produce a conversion. Just rank all of these keywords on how valuable do you feel that would be to you. And then from there, just going into, do we run a paid search campaign, or do we just dive right in? Like maybe you do, maybe they've got some paid search campaign data, which I would, obviously love to see then, but then sort of refining down from there and then going, okay, now based on our competition level, what are we going to need to do as far as like links, supplemental content, right? Like if you wanted to rank for American Civil War, okay, you're definitely not just going to rank with just that content. We're talking about a section of your site now, and probably a big set. Unless you're Wikipedia, we're going to need to build something out here, right? So, okay, let's look at all the different battles that took place. Let's look at like all the different scenarios and sort of people involved, and come up with those sort of strategies for interlinking these large sorts of sets of data to make sure that Google understands, okay, if they're actually not just interested in the American Civil War, they're interested in, these people that were involved, and they're interested in these specific battles. Okay, we've got something for everyone. Like, it may not be on that page, but that page references it and then goes to a page that has all that information on it. And we're seeing all the entities on that page that we would expect to see, and stuff like that, and the concepts. And, the reading level is appropriate for the target audience. And hey, they've even thrown a couple videos in there, like in case people like a video. Because I think a lot of people for content like that would like a video. I mean, heck, I tend to lean to textual content because I can skim it. But that's why I go to textual. But most of my searches personally, like a lot of them, just involve, I'm looking up how to do a thing. So I just want to like jump right to that part. That's like, oh, okay, here's where the steps start. Like I already know all the like filler data on this thing. It's just like, oh, okay, I've got this, like, this is a new registrar. How do I set up a secure certificate on it? Right. Or something like that, where it's just like, I know all the surrounding stuff. I don't need an introduction into secure certificates. I just want to jump to that part that just tells me where is it in your interface, because your interface is stupid and non-intuitive, and it doesn't just have like an SSL button on it or something like that. So anyway, but even that's sort of relevant, and you can gain some insight just speaking of content. If you put jump links, like not only are those nice little anchors for search engines to go, here's the part where SSL jumps, but if you set up, like I like to set up in Tag Manager, just tracking on those jump links and go, which ones? What content are people clicking on these jump links? Because if they're not, if you look at your scroll depth, it might show 90%, like if you set up scroll depth tracking or something. But if that was just like, oh, they clicked on this jump link, it jumped them all the way to the bottom of the page because that's where the thing they're most interested in is, that might tell you something about, oh, it's not such an interesting piece, they're going all the way to the bottom. It's that this is actually what they want and should be up at the top, right? Like okay, they actually just want to know how to use our interface. They don't want to know the history of secure certificates, right? Or something like that.
Well, yeah, and a good case in point, we both know somebody who deals an awful lot with recipe site clients. And one of the things that I see constantly people complaining about is why, when I go to a recipe site, I got to scroll 3/4 of the way down the page before I could actually get to the ingredients, instead of hearing about how Aunt Edna decided to do this the first time back after her wedding, because these bloggers have been reading so much about storytelling being the key to success, so they preface it with 3,000 words of story before you ever get to the recipe. I didn't come to a story site. I came to a recipe site. Right. Jump links. These are very nice. They're your friend.
Yeah, I think recipe sites they're just kind of fun like that. Like I've picked on them for that, like that exact thing, and they're the hallmark of that sort of angle of thing. Well, you know what? I've seen some e-commerce site do that with product descriptions, where I'm just like,
sales pages.
I think Amazon people, it only needs to be that long with like a show more. Like you do not need to give me like the history of your version of the blue widget in size XXL or whatever, right? Like that this thing might be.
I used to spend a lot of the fitness and supplement niche. These guys write these sales pages that were 50,000 words, and they go on forever before you even get to the part where you find out how much it costs and whether you can buy it or not.
Right.
And I convinced one of them to just put an orange bar at the top that says, "I don't care, I want to buy this." And he was shocked at how many people would just click that button because they don't care about the long spiel unless it's really good. Why?
Well, yeah, like and getting like I don't even know the number, and Amazon does a good job, but Amazon, part of their benefit right now, and I use them a lot, like when I'm like thinking of things, because I'm like, I don't know if there's a company on earth that has spent more on conversion optimization than Amazon, because like a 0.01% increase in conversion is worth millions of dollars. So I you just know, it's like Expedia and travel. It's like, I know they've put in their time here, so you can gain some insights. Amazon now does have the benefit of, we've all been there 100 times, so I know right where to scroll to, right? It's just like I can go right there, but their layout is very friendly like that. I can go, I just care about the reviews. The first thing I'm going to jump to is a review. I'm going to take a look at that. I'm going to first make sure, are these reviews for the same item, or is somebody doing a switch, a bait and switch here on me, and like moving products just to carry over some good reviews from something else? And then, okay, let's jump to that. Once I know that it's a decent product, all right, let's actually like find out what this thing does. Like, why do I want these earbuds, versus a different set of earbuds or whatnot? I'm just picking the last thing I purchased, which I happen to be wearing right now on Amazon. So yeah, I mean, that's, and again, I guess reviews, you can count that as content too. But going back to the recipe site, I do agree that I think it's somebody read too many SEO things or just didn't let go. Right? Because you don't need, I understand starting with a little block. We all do, right? Like, I mean, maybe no, we all do, but I wouldn't just go, boom, here's your recipe without any content preceding it. I would normally go, okay, here's like 50 to 100 words. You can probably see where the recipe starts before you hit the fold. Like, so you can see the end is near, and then go down into the rest of these.
Or at the very least, as you were saying earlier,
patio you were on in Paris, right?
Yeah,
and then you can move on to that.
And at the very least, use some jump links.
And use some jump. Yeah, just get me to the recipe, right? And like you can. But one of the things I find really funny on the recipe ones, because I've looked at them from that same standard, is it's amazing how many of them don't actually. They tell these great stories, but they don't actually use their keywords very well. Like, they're clearly doing this for SEO, but you're not actually putting in the words that I'd be looking for to find out how to make this flan, right? Or whatever it is that I'm looking up. So. You've only used flan in there like twice. I'm not saying keyword density matters, but it's 3,000 words and you've used flan twice, right? Like, that's not a way to reinforce relevancy inside of there. So anyway, but I do know a lot about, whatever, the beaches of Puerto Vallarta or whatever now from this great write-up that you've done on them, the thing that I didn't want to know. Anyway.
Fair enough.
Well, there's worse things to know a lot about than the beaches in Puerto Vallarta, though.
It is, and I have become a little bit of an expert, but it is not from recipe sites, and that's not an expert on Puerto Vallarta. Just the beach, just the beach, and the friendly people that will bring you a Corona while you're on one.
Nice.
Something I just to make sure we chat, well, just sort of like cover it as part, something I think does get overlooked by content producers and not the person that we know talking about recipes, because this actually doesn't relate to that at all. And I just want to be clear, that person, if they're listening, this is not you that I'm talking about here, because I know you got your stuff together on tech SEO. But I think a lot of people, when they're thinking of content, do think of the words, and that should be the first thing you think about is, can I write this? If I can't write this, who can write this? Let's find a good person to write this. And you've done all your research on what it should be and that sort of stuff. One of the things I always like to make sure to think about, I think of Schema as a content format. In fact, often when I'm getting writers to do stuff, I'm like, well, this is a how-to. I'm going to need this, this, and this, right? Like, while you're writing this piece, make sure I have short versions of this and this and this, especially like, I've worked in machine learning now. So you can't just drop code in, because code messes up schema, because schema is code, right? Like, so you need different descriptions and things like that, for that. But thinking about schema as part of your code and going, okay, let's keep like just a little short list somewhere until you have it like in your head, going, what are all the schema types that I might apply to content? Oh, this is a how-to. Right? Okay. Because what it'll do is dramatically change what the layout of your search result looks like. Like a how-to all of a sudden goes, okay, like I wrote one on YOLO V5. It's a computer vision anyway, on YOLO v5 and object detection to get the little boxes around people. And it now has the 1, 2, 3 and estimated times to complete, and that the cost is free to do this. You can download all the stuff. It's, open source, right? So it just changes, and my click-through rate is higher than the position would indicate, because they've just got these extra features around it that make you look different and clearly identify, I'm about to show you how to do this. I'm about to show you how to do object detection in Windows, right? If you want to have, I had my webcam will show boxes around me as I'm moving. Stuff like that, right? You can do that sort of stuff. And it's actually quite easy because I'm not a machine learning engineer. I just happen to follow a video that one of the people I work with had created, just to go, can Dave do this? Turns out he can. It's at that level. But just going, okay, this is easy and it's going to take you under 30 minutes, right? Because it took Dave under 30 minutes and this isn't what he does. So, this is how this gets done. And so considering schema as well, and there's a bunch of great schema generators, and I think a lot of people tend with all types of content to go, but I can't produce the best. It won't be perfect. And I've gone painfully through the schema, or gone through all the left, what's everything I can add that's relevant in here. But some is better than none. It's like when you're doing A/B testing on a website, or you're deploying a, sort of a new site. Well, we can't quite make it perfect because we don't have the dev skills. Is it better? Is it better than what you have, right? Then just do it and fix it later, right? If you can only renovate the kitchen and not the bathroom, renovate the kitchen. Don't wait until you've saved up enough for both, right? Just get this fixed so that your life is better, and then do the other part later.
Well, that brings me to a statement, a thing I've been doing for the last year-ish. We've taken this saying, if the thing's worth doing, do it well. And we flipped that to, if it's worth doing poorly. Because at least you're doing some of it.
And you can then you run your A/B tests, your refiner, or pull your analytics, go, okay, here's what that got me. Let's refine a little bit. I've worked through a lot of designs with people. I'm sure you both have. I'm sure a lot of the listeners have as well. Where it's as soon as it hits good enough, it's good enough. As long as it's better than what you had, then what are you waiting for? I can't count a full disclosure on Dave's failings at following his own advice. I can't count the number of times I've started a redesign on the Beanstalk site. I probably got 8 half-built versions around, and then sort of gone, I got delayed a little bit, couldn't make it perfect, didn't have time to completely rewrite all the content. It's but you had the content there. The design was better, so just move that content over and worry about the content later. But the fear always being, I'll never get to it, I'll be lazy. Well, okay, now nothing's changed. So now you're exactly where you were, and it's so much later. There's new styles out. So now you're on a 7-year-old style instead of a 5-year-old style or a 3-year-old style. You could have done these things. So sometimes we can be our own worst enemy in following our own advice on that one. And that's just my here's where I failed to follow my own advice. So I try to be a little sympathetic with clients when they fail to follow my advice as well.
Well, several years ago, Ian Lurie of Portent put something up on his blog. He referred to it as DFP, distance from perfection, which I glommed onto. I thought that was a great way of describing it, because you can't optimize, okay? You can improve, but you're never going to hit perfection. So what you do is you hit those little nickel and dime steps to get you closer to perfection. And especially these days, there was a time not that many years ago when there was 1 or 2 things you could do that was going to have a dramatic effect on your rankings with Google. Now, there are 72 things you've got to do to have an equal effect, because there's a lot more ranking factors involved. There's a lot of different weighting that's taken place. So you've got to attack these little battles.
Yeah.
And continue to improve, because you're never going to actually hit that optimal point.
Right. I know. I mean, that's a great point, and you never will. And as long as you can come up with some good benchmarks, I've been part of a couple where I'm it won't be perfect in design, but we're having to totally change the build. The framework is totally different, the build is totally different. So let's just make sure all the boxes and positions of things are in the right spot. And let's just make a sprint and just get that done, so that then we're at least in the position to start to make changes, because right now we're trying to do 8 things at once, right? We're trying to change design. We're having to deal with like a million different opinions. Heck, let's just make it look exactly the same, but in the framework we need it in, because we're moving to JavaScript or something, right? Like whatever you're doing, just move it over there and just make it look exactly the same, because then at least it's in the framework. And then your SEO can start to go, well, there's the impact of that framework, and I can figure out my thing. Heck, I might even argue for that and go, that'll let me know what the framework did. And then we can start to figure out what else to do while I know what like this did, rather than waiting for this magic day when all of us have all the time in the world that will never happen, because every day we do this. So we'll be waiting forever rather than going, all right, now we're done that. Let's fix this box. Let's fix our search feature. And I mean, none of us are going to be perfect. Google's right now testing whether that little like magnifying glass should have color on it, right? Like they're constantly testing, Doc, to your point, these minor little things just to go, can we make users use this better? Will users like this more? I know that's not a direct SEO thing other than it being on Google, but it's not like they're not doing it to rank better. I think they do okay on traffic, but if they're still testing, I remember once at a conference, I was talking about the importance of testing, and I went through a series of slides, and I'd gone like, here's a change Google made, here's a change Google made, here's a change Google made, and I went through, and there were 17 of these slides, and I said, that was last month. That's it. 17 changes that they had made just to their layout for users. That was a month. Like, it was a busy month. Normally, it's probably only 12 or 13. But it happened to be 17, which was great that when, the month after I was doing my thing at this conference. But I mean, if Google's willing to put in that time, and still after the massive efforts that they've put into user retention and user engagement and the massive amounts of data that they can collect, if they're still doing that, why are we thinking, oh, we'll just hit it out of the park on the first go, and we're just going to wait for that magic day when we can just get this all done at once? They didn't. And they went, let's just do incremental refinements over and over and over again until we're dead.
They do have the advantage of a significant number of data points coming into the site with the volume of people that hit those pages.
Yeah,
I mean, they can run split tests in a couple of hours,
right.
Where some clients need a couple of months to run a decent split test. Just because they don't have the traffic. So
that's very true. And optimize is horrible. I've seen that and sort of walked clients through that, and they're like, well, let's run these 4. And I'm like, that page has like 40 visits a day. Like, we're going to be showing 10 to each person for forever. Like, this is not quick data collection. Let's just pick our 2 biggest, right? Or run a paid search campaign and just dump it there, understanding that paid search and organic search are actually going to drive different people, but some data is better. Like, sometimes you'll just hit like, it's so overwhelmingly different.
That's 2 things that drive me away immediately when I see somebody posting about a study or an experiment they've done is A, no control, and B, a sample size of like 4 sites. Both of which are totally meaningless, okay? Add 3 zeros behind that, and maybe you've got something worth looking at,
Yeah, I think that's been a pet peeve of all of us when we see something become a thing that actually didn't have a basis in enough data. Like, I don't blame people for talking about stuff and going, oh, I did this thing. Like, I would sit, at a conference with you, Doc, have a drink and go, did this thing and this happened. But it would be casually over a drink and going, here's a fun thing if anybody else wants to know or test it. Here's a fun thing that you might want to know, and here's what I found out from it. Not, here's a big article that looks authoritative because of where I put it, going, this is going to be the key to getting you above the fold on page 1 from starting from page 8. Right?
But no online pub would ever publish something like that.
No, well, none. We all know the ones that would, or videos that would be made, to cover those things. And the thing is, I don't even blame some publishers, because there's even publishers that I don't think have the skill, like, where they're a publishing company. they're hoping that we'll police ourselves, right? Like, which I think Google's learned from the past. Don't trust SEO.
No, don't.
That's just a horrible idea. Give them a green bar, and all of a sudden they're selling links for like hundreds of dollars a month because we told them how much value it has, right? Like, it's
you may not have owned several hundred link directories in the past.
Right, and that's the point, right? Like, you just can't give SEOs nice things.
No.
And that's like, I don't blame them for not telling us stuff. I appreciate that they go, yeah, there was an update. What was it about? No. No, we're not doing that. And I understand, especially for like some of the newer people who don't remember the like Wild West that was. That they're like, but why not? And it is so complex, and it'd be really hard to tell. But I think in a lot of cases, they're pulling in so mmany machine learning systems, like ever since Rank Brain and neural nets. And so like, it's all just become so complex. I think John would go, I don't know. It's search quality. That's all they tell me. Like, because there's probably about 18 engineers involved in just that one change, maybe 1,800 engineers involved in that one change. And none of them quite know what's going on because they programmed a machine to figure out what to do. And they don't quite know what that machine did, but people seem to like it. Like, that's kind of all they'll know, and that it seemed to focus on these areas, right? Seemed to focus on link spam, or seemed to focus on improving click-through rates, right? And finding sites that have higher click-through rates and traction or whatever.
Well, and sometimes it's as simple as giving us essentially the same data that we were already getting, but using 12% fewer machine cycles, so we're alleviating our hardware burden,
That is, like, I love hearing you say that. I think that is the one thing that is the unsung hero of what machine learning engineers at Google have to contend with. Yep. And where so much power, I've read a couple of their papers on it, and just the amount of effort that goes into producing nothing but cheaper. Like, just going, we have so many machines doing so many things, we just need to make that cheaper so that we can free up those machines to do new things, right? So that we can do the next thing. And so I find that really interesting that you identified that as well, because it is just a fascinating but just completely undervalued area, I think, of a lot of the work they do.
Well, just
I think
imagine,
those of us in the industry can go, so many searches. There's so many of us.
Yeah, and you can put in a search query and get back in a matter, 12 milliseconds, you've got back 2.8 million results for that query.
Oh, but there were 2 spam results. I don't like that. Like,
no, but
better.
I mean, just the ability to even find the index in that few nanoseconds is incredible. To actually pull something for page 1 only that's worthwhile is phenomenal.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, I know, because if I had like a list of bookmarks in my top nav of the 10 sites I visit the most often, it would take me probably longer to look through those bookmarks than to actually just Google the name of the site and pull it up. Go there. So I've actually, like, most of my bookmarks are just like, I need to remember where this thing is because I can't find it. Like, it's not it's a Notion doc or something like that. Most of my bookmarks is stuff like that now. The rest of it's just easier to just Google and go, there it is.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to shut it off too fast, but we are coming closer to an hour. So maybe you give Dave a couple minutes to, tell us what you're into, how people can get a hold of you if you want them to, and kind of wrap up what you've got going on.
Sure. I guess listeners will probably know from the intro. I'm the lead of SEO at Weights and Biases, so I basically help people find people that teach machines how to think. So that's kind of a fun job for somebody who's a nerd. If you want to find me, the easiest place would be Twitter. It's just Beanstalk IM, like the letter M, like internet marketing, is my handle over there. And I'm always happy to answer questions. And most of my feed is just SEO stuff. Like, I start every morning by reading all the SEO news. Thanks, Barry Schwartz. He's not the only person I read, but most of the stuff I find is from him because he's just on stuff first. And so most of the stuff I share there is about what's going on. And it's hopefully people find it interesting, and feel free to reach out. Happy to answer any questions for folks.
Really appreciate you spending your day with us. That was an awesome discussion, and thank you very much. Like I said,
Thanks for
if
having
you
me.
want to, glad to have you, and want to thank everybody for watching the show. If you enjoy what we're doing, obviously we're going to do the YouTube thing. Subscribe, please. Like the video. I'm sure there's a process I'm supposed to be using to get people to do that, but I don't know what that is at this point. And we will see you all in our next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Great having you.
Thank you.